Thank you so much. Beautiful to hear those voices of our sisters from all over the world. And we will continue this tomorrow morning and hear from the rest of you. This next section of our program is really to create a foundation together for all the plenary sessions coming up. So we're going to sort of mark the ground of where we stand right now. And we're going to begin with the state of the science, what nature is saying. And we really have the honor of inviting Dr. Katherine Hayhoe to be with us. And some of you may know her. She is an incredible scientist, atmospheric scientist, who studies climate change, and she's an expert reviewer for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and she's going to be Skyped in. She really, really wanted to be here in person, but could not, so I'm hoping our technology is ready to go to bring Katherine Hayhoe to us. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, Katherine. Welcome. Great. All right. I'm going to share my screen with you in a minute. But first of all, I just want to say how happy I am to be able to be with you here, at least virtually. I'm a climate scientist. I actually get to study every single day what's happening to our planet. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to share a little bit of what we see happening every day in the world around us, and then talk about why, as a scientist, care about it. So let's see if this works here to share my screen with you. Oops. Can you see my screen? Yes, I do. Okay, great. First of all, I wanted to talk about what we know. We hear a lot of debate on TV and the newspaper and the media about things that we know and things that we don't know and things that we're not certain about. But the field of climate science stands on foundations that stretch back over 200 years. And for more than a century, there are a few things we have known. The first of these things we know is that the entire planet is warming. We often just look at our air temperature as if that was a picture of the whole planet. This is a much more realistic version of what's been happening to our planet. This is all the extra heat that has been going into the ocean, the atmosphere, the land, and the ice of our planet. There is no slowdown in global warming. There is no stopping of global warming. It has been increasing more and more, decade after decade. We also know it's not just about what our thermometers or what our scientific instruments might tell us. We see evidence for a changing planet all around us, much of it in our own backyards. If we look around the entire planet, we see changes in where we can grow blueberries, when the cherry trees in Kyoto bloom. They've been keeping track of that date for over 1,100 years, and they're flowering now 3 weeks earlier in the year than they ever have before. We see the glaciers in Glacier National Park disappearing to the point where they will have to rename the park. We see drought and flood causing $5 billion of crop losses around the world every year since 1980. In 2000, Cynthia Rosenzweig, who is at Columbia University right there in New York, she counted how many different papers have been published studying physical and biological proof of a warming planet. She found 26,500 signs that our planet is warming from the natural world around us. So we know that climate is changing. We know our planet is getting warmer. We also know it's happening because we've been burning so much coal and gas and oil. Scientists agree. 97% of climate scientists, more than 97% of all the papers published in this field agree that not only is the planet warming, but we are the cause. We know that. Are you seeing my slides okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just wanted to check. The third thing we know is that the impacts are here. It's not a distant future issue. It's not just about the polar bears at the Arctic or the Native American villages and Inuit villages that are crumbling and falling into the ocean as the permafrost melts. No, it's about this happening all around the world. It's about the heat wave in Australia last year that was so hot that they had to put a new color on their map. They had never had 54 degrees Celsius weather in Australia before. It's about the floods that are happening all over Europe and North America. It's about stronger hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico. The impacts are all around us, and they're here today. They're no longer distant or off in the future. The last thing we know is that the risks are dangerous. 2/3 of the world's biggest cities lie within a few feet of sea level rise. A sea level rise that is now happening twice as fast as it was 30 years ago. The consequences for human society, and the consequences especially for those who lack the resources to adapt, are enormous. These are the four things that we know. So John Holdren, who was a professor at Harvard University and then served as the president's science advisor, he said something which I think is very wise. He said, at this point, we basically have three choices. We can mitigate, that's reducing our carbon emissions, we can adapt, and we can suffer. We are going to do some of each. The question is what the mix is going to be. The more mitigation we do, the less adaptation we need to do, and the less suffering there will be. This is the point at which we stand. So at this point, I have to take off my scientist hat because science can only take us so far. Science can tell us what the problem is. Science can tell us why the problem is happening. Science can even tell us what the consequences of our choices will be. But science cannot tell us why we care. Why we care is because of what's in our hearts. And so for me, why I care is a very personal issue. It's because I'm a Christian, and I believe that we are told that the greatest commandment is to love our God and to love our neighbor as ourselves. And today, when we look around the world, it is very clear that we are not loving our neighbor through the issue of climate change. Climate change creates injustices. It creates injustices, first of all, between the haves and the have-nots. It creates injustices also between individual nations as well as within a nation. And it creates injustices between this generation and the next. We are using resources and we are leaving messes that they will have to clean up. And, as my 6-year-old would say, that is not fair. So that's why I really believe that we can do something about it. I think that we can reduce our use of coal and gas and oil, and when we do so, it's actually going to clean up our cities. It's going to help our kids who have asthma. I think we can develop renewables, and when we do that, we're actually investing in local economies. When we go into Africa or into South America, where I grew up in Colombia. I had friends who lived in houses made out of Tide detergent boxes. I had friends who saved their weekly salary to buy 10 bricks so they could build a wall for their house. And when they had a wall, they held a party, and they invited everybody to come. I lived among people like that, and I know how important it is to be self-reliant, to be able to have your own resources and not depend on others, and especially not depend on other countries for what you need. And I think renewables offers a way to do that. I think we can stop being so greedy with the resources that we're using, not just our water, but other resources like food and energy. There is enough to go around if we love our neighbor as ourselves. And lastly, I really, really hope and I believe that we can make sensible choices. We all love our kids. We all want a better future for them and for other people's children too. And so I think that by making good choices, we can build a more secure future, even in the face of a changing climate. Thank you. I should add, too, that although I can't be with you here today, let's see if I can stop sharing my screen. There we go, I'm back. Although I can't be here with you today, I would love to be able to serve as a resource. If I can help in any way with climate science or with climate information, please feel free to call on me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katherine. And we will be in touch with our working groups. I'm sure there will be some questions we have for you in one of our working groups about the climate science. And great that you could Skype in. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. That's when the technology works. That's what we need to use it.